The air was thick with smoke from the unceasing cannon and missile fire. The combined fleet spanned for as far as could be seen from the flagship USS Pride. The continuous concussive shock waves of dozens of battleships, frigates, cruisers, and smaller gunboats caused the waters of the Pacific to ripple and convulse. It was a deafening and impressive barrage. "Sir," a lieutenant whose name tag read Andrews shouted over the volley. "Ordnance at 50%. We can maintain this level of fire for 6 more minutes." Admiral Dmitry Pashenko nodded, a grim expression on his face. He stared intently at the huge screen on the far side of his flagship's command room. It displayed a view of the early evening sky. It was cloudless, and on any other day, it might have even been a comforting sight. Today was different. Today, a great alien vessel dominated the view. Its shields glowed under the unceasing pounding of artillery and the volleys of missiles being launched from his fleet, stationed 5 miles away. The greater share of the US Navy was engaged, and the alien craft hadn't taken a scratch. Dmitry wondered if it was even powered using any known materials. It just hovers there. So still, impossibly motionless. He suppressed the urge to shiver. The sky above, what until recently was San Francisco, was the site of the most fearsome dogfight that anyone had ever seen. Hundreds of United States Air Force fighters dodged and weaved among unceasing fire from both friend and foe and the seemingly infinite swarms of kamikaze drones. The flashing of railguns caused their hulls to gleam. The sky beyond was a pale blue, contrasting the angry red fireballs that were erupting across the shattered skies. Nature, it seemed, would offer little deference to the affairs of mankind. Balls of molten slag and pieces of smoldering debris fell from the sky in torrents. They looked like meteorites, streaking their way towards the smoldering ground. The destruction had a kind of disturbing beauty that entranced the aged admiral. The great alien vessel was entirely unscratched, save for a single black pockmark on its lower side. It hung motionless above the ruins of San Francisco, but its turrets shredded the air. The rate at which human fighters fell was sickening. Dmitry had never imagined a scenario with such wanton slaughter. It was hardly a solace that many of the drones fell with them. From somewhere in the command room, Dmitry could hear the pilots shouting back and forth at one another. It sounded like a total mess up there. It was almost impossible to decipher individual phrases. "They're all over me," a voice screamed. "Red 1, get these things off me," another shouted. "Fuck. They're on my hull, I'm going to eject." The voice was cut short so abruptly that the admiral wondered if the comms link had gone dead. A new fireball that plummeted towards the earth told him otherwise. Sometimes a single scream would pierce the cacophony. Then, it too would be hauntingly cut short and the chorus of shouting would resume fresh. On and on it went. Dmitry saw his brother's note. Ashes. Dmitry Pashenko tried to keep his focus. His father's voice resounded with unheeded wisdom. "A king who rules nothing but ashes is not a king at all," the father had said. The son saw the truth of the statement before him now. This was accomplishing nothing. "I am accomplishing nothing." Dmitry searched for a solution. There was none to find. "I couldn't save her." Catherine's face, tear-stained but vacant, stared at him from that ditch. It offered him no pity. "I can't save them." He looked around the command room. So many young men hurried about, carrying out their assignments with grim determination. They reminded him of his brothers. Boys are all the same, he thought. Always seeking glory, always in over their heads. 4 minutes of ammunition remaining. Andrews informed him. Pashenko had no response. His orders kept these men here. His decisions were the ones that would determine if they would live or die. Even with all of their lives in his hands, Dmitry felt more powerless than he ever had before. They cracked the moon. What can we do against such power? He wondered. It hung in the sky above them. At least, its pieces did. 3 gigantic fragments, with rocks of varying sizes floating among them, created a view that no human had ever beheld before today. Poets who had created their love sonnets about lovers beneath moonlight. Ancients who had worshipped it as a deity. Men who dreamed of venturing beyond the world and setting foot on another. All of their dreams lay shattered and desecrated, along with the moon that had inspired them. Is there even a way to win? Will there be anything left, even if we do? There seemed to be a new question for every blast of Pride's cannons. The barrage was unceasing and comprised of everything that the United States war machine could throw, launch, or shoot. Still, the alien craft seemed to ward it all off with ease. It was like watching tribesmen try to damage a tank. Suddenly, the screen of the command room flickered. Static filled the peripherals. The image became hazy and then shut off altogether. Admiral Pashenko opened his mouth to demand to know what was happening. Before he could speak, the picture came back on. There was no ship on California sky. In its place was something altogether different, although just as fascinating. It was a creature. Avian to be certain. But it was unlike any winged creature that Terra had ever created. This one was far larger and more intimidating. It stood on two muscular legs that seemed disproportionately large for its arms and upper body. Had Dimitri been a biologist, he would have noted that the creature would have been unable to achieve flight. Instead, the admiral noticed its forearms. They extended out from the long black and gray sash, torn in the middle, that the thing wore over its torso. Two smaller ones below, two larger ones above. All four ended in vicious talons. The creature's head sat firmly above a short neck. It had a beak that was divided into three pieces that were open slightly, exposing fangs within its maw. It had no nose that the admiral could see and was covered in brown feathers that stood on end, making the already large alien seem even more monstrous. What captured Dimitri's attention most, however, were its eyes. Pure black, they were tiny and doll-like. It was impossible to tell what sort of a consciousness hid behind those portals. Suddenly, the thunder of the cannons outside the Pride seemed very distant. First, the creature stood silently. Pashenko thought it might be staring directly into his soul. Dimitri wondered if it could see all of the pain that lay there. Then, the alien opened its mouth and began to speak. The sound that emanated from the ship speakers was a combination of clacking, screeching, and a kind of eerie howling that sent shivers down the admiral's spine. To his surprise, the sounds changed into English. The cadence and tone were both off, but it was most certainly human speech. It was a deeply discomforting sound. The words Admiral Dmitri Pashenko heard were more disturbing still. The author's name and the link to original text is in the description. Consider tapping the thumbs up and pressing the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video.